everyone. My name is Dr. Mike Mills, and I am so excited for tonight. Every week we meet here on Monday night for a new episode of Let's Talk as we integrate the habits of health into our life. And tonight I am so excited to be joined by my great friend JC. You can see him there. He was an Uber driver that day for Amy and I. So we were having fun with that. We wanted to get picture with him that day. But you know, on this course and on this journey of living a healthy life and building the habits of health into our structure, there are times we come across people's work that just so ingrains with what Dr. A has given us within the habits of health, the tools and strategies that he's equipped us with. And I don't know what year it was exactly, but I was actually introduced to Nir Eyal's first book, Indistractable, by Dr. A. We were in a conversation and he had read the book. It looks like this, and amazing book. And Dr. A said he had just read it, and man, you should pick up this book and read it. And so impactful. As a dad, the story that starts that book, I think it just touches your heart and it connects with you in a big way. So tonight is about JC and Nir, just having an amazing conversation about how we can equip you and serve you and living a healthier and better life. So JC, I'll let you take it over from here.
Oh, can't hear you.
That's the old unmute button. Thank you. Thank you, Nir Eyal, for helping me with that. That's when you know you're doing well in life, everybody, is when Nir Eyal is there to help you with your audio. Yeah, Mike, thanks so much for that nice introduction. I don't remember, was I actually an Uber driver then, or was that just like some sort of silly picture of you guys walking up and I looked like that? So grateful to be here. I've had the opportunity over the years of meeting this individual, and God, if you're on the internet and you watch TV, it's pretty hard to miss this guy, Mr. Nir Eyal. And what's interesting for all of us here in the States, this is an evening event for us, but it's morning. It's tomorrow for Nir Eyal because he's in Singapore. So it's an international call right now. So I just want to just quickly give a little introduction. Mike said it, Nir's written some just pivotal books, like Hooked and Indistractable. And, those two books changed my life. And I will say that a lot of times I say things on calls like this and people text me and they go, "Oh my God, that's so great what you said." Well, a lot of those things I steal from Nir Eyal. So you're gonna hear some of those things tonight. But Nir is just an amazing individual that he doesn't just write fantastic books, but what you're going to see is they're kind of things that he's been through in his life. A lot of people don't know this, and if you're looking at him, you'd never guess that this is a guy that was obese at one time. So we'll probably pull that out of him at one time. But I'm just so honored and privileged. And, I want to once again congratulate him on this unbelievable new book, Beyond Belief, that is probably one of the most relevant books that we could ever talk about in this particular community. And I want to congratulate you on, having it be a New York Times bestseller, which as an author, that ain't easy to do. So congratulations, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. It's so great to see you again, and thanks for having me on. And hello, everybody. I would say good morning from Singapore. It's tomorrow for me. It's Tuesday for me. So I'm hoping you have a great day today. And being in the future, I can tell you tomorrow's going to be awesome. It's a great day tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. That's awesome. So a lot of people might, there's going to be a lot of people watching this live with us here. There's people on our live stream as well. And then people are going to watch this as a recording. So I'd love to just catch everybody up a little bit on all things Nir Eyal, near and far. So, one of my favorite questions to ask is, what's it like to be Nir Eyal these days?
It's great. I have, it's funny. I was in a webinar recently with some fans who followed my work, and we were talking about my new book, Beyond Belief. And somebody said to me, Nir, I've been following you for a long time and you seem happier. Did this book make you happier in some way? And I thought about that question. I realized, I'm not actually happier, but I suffer less. That's really what's changed in my life since writing this book, is that I realized, and what the research shows, is that pain and suffering are two separate things. We tend to conflate the two, that pain always leads to suffering. And I think once I realized that, everything changed. Everything. And we're not talking about any kind of, supernatural. There's nothing magical about this. This is how the brain works, that we actually can, through the power of our beliefs, separate pain from suffering. And, as someone who was formerly obese and who still has to think about my weight, you never stop thinking about how to manage a healthy lifestyle. It just becomes the way you are, it becomes your lifestyle. Having that separation between pain and suffering, something that I used to think was always part of the process of getting in shape and getting healthy. It always used to be a drag. It always used to be something that what was painful, that I hated, that it was something I felt like I was cursed with. And now, having understood the power of beliefs and how beliefs can shape not only what we see, but what we feel and ultimately what we do, everything changed for me. I just don't suffer from things the way I used to, not only when it comes to my health, but also like the everyday annoyances, like small things don't, the other day I spilled a cup of coffee. Okay, that would have annoyed me. That would have like started me off on the wrong foot that day. Doesn't bother me anymore. Like things that used to cause me annoyance and suffering are gone. And I think once you're able to harness that power, you can unlock your true potential.
Well, without destroying the chat, I would say who in the audience would put a 1 in the chat if you would like to suffer less. I mean, we know that suffering is part of life, but I like the idea of suffering less. And we're going to get into the idea of beliefs. And Dr. A has talked about beliefs for so many years. I mean, I'm coaching with Optavia almost 20 years now. He's always talked about, belief as something that we build along. So you guys love this discussion. So I've prepared some really cool questions that are entangled in, some of the reality of this audience. So Nir's not prepared for this, but he does this a lot, so he'll be fine. So let's talk about beyond belief. And
yeah.
So the book is fantastic, and I highly recommend that everybody reads it, and it'll very, very much relate to everything that we talk about here. But it explores how our beliefs shape our reality. So this is a big, big part of it. In health transformation, we're constantly hearing people say things like, I always struggle. I always struggle with my weight. I'm just not disciplined. Or one of my favorite is they say, well, I always start strong, but then something happens. So my question is, how much of lasting health change and transformation, how much of it is physical and how much of it is basically someone breaking free from like the identity of, that they've repeated for so many years? That's what I want to hear.
Well, I would think that one is upstream of the other. And here's the study that proved it. There was a study at Yale that found that people who have positive views about aging live on average 7.5 years longer. Okay, 7.5 years. That is more than the effect of diet. It's more than the effect of exercise. It's more than the effect of quitting smoking. It's a massive impact just by how they believe their view of aging. So what does that sound like? A positive view of aging is something like growth is possible at any age. Okay, that's a positive view of aging. A negative view of aging might be something that we hear all the time, right? Who hasn't heard someone say, oh, I'm having a senior moment, or I'm getting too old for this, right? We say this stuff all the time. Maybe you've heard someone say it. You probably have said it to yourself. I used to say it to myself. That's a negative view of aging. Someone who believes that aging involves inevitable decline. So aging involves inevitable decline versus growth is possible at any age. Your default belief in this study determined whether you would live 7.5 years longer. Like, this is mind-blowing. We should all be just, you think about all the advertising and messaging around don't smoke, eat right, exercise. Nobody ever tells you about beliefs. But beliefs have a greater impact than any of those things. Now, why is that? Is it because our beliefs are changing the vibrations of our mitochondria at the quantum level? No, it's none of that stuff. It's nothing magical whatsoever. It's that beliefs do become your biology. That is true. Your beliefs become your biology. But how? Your beliefs become your biology via behavior.
Wow.
So what this study found was that when people have positive views of aging, such as growth is possible at any age, those are people who are more likely to go get some exercise in the garden or see friends or volunteer in their community, things that really do increase your longevity and health span. So it's not magic. It's not that beliefs make you healthier by themselves. They change your biology by changing your behavior.
So fascinating. And, you know, we've got lots and lots of people here at all different phases from brand new. Some people are probably here getting ready to start their health transformation. And then we've got people like Dr. Mike Mills that, you know, everybody wants to be like. But it seems like the action steps of, you know, and the putting yourself in the throes of a health transformation and that changing the way you look at things, you know, and increasing your belief and maybe changing some of these things is where the longevity happens. So just quickly on that, knowing that, you know, how you view aging and all that, if somebody has a negative view about that, because very often when we start and we're unhealthy, we have a negative view about a lot of things. So does somebody need to have the right view and the right belief system in order to start their health transformation? Or is that something from your own experience that you build along the way?
Well, let me share something with, can you see, oh, I don't know if I shared this properly here. I wanted to share a optical illusion with you. I'll have to share it with you later. Maybe you can put in the notes here or in the chat if someone can find the checkerboard illusion. But actually, you know, let me see if I can get this. Hold on for me one second.
I'm looking for it right now, Nir. I got it.
Okay, if you can bring it up on
Yeah,
screen.
we've got Nir, we've got a guy in the back that's like Yoda. He will find it.
Okay. The only thing is, can you just see the image now? You can see the checkerboard?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Actually, okay, great. So you
people
see
people tuning in on Zoom can see it. People tuning in on Facebook Live and YouTube cannot, but I'll pull it up so they can in just a moment.
Okay, terrific. So if you can see that there is square A and square B. JC, you can see this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me, which one looks darker, square A or square B? Which looks darker?
Well, for sure, A.
For sure, A. Everybody agrees. Square A definitely looks darker, right? If square A doesn't look darker, you should get your eyes checked. You should go to the eye doctor. So we all agree square A and square B look that square A is darker than square B. Now, the fact is, square A and B are not different colors. They are, in fact, the same exact color. Because if I take two lines that are the same shade of gray and I put them side by side to square A and B, you can see that, in fact, without a doubt, square A and B are the same color. You agree with me, JC, now that I've given you this evidence?
100%.
100%. They're the same color. Okay, so that's not even the interesting part. That's just a cute little optical illusion. Here's the amazing part. Here's the mind-blowing part. Even when you know the facts, even when you know square A and B are the same color, take a look at that image on the left now, the first original image, and tell me, JC, which square still looks darker?
I want to say that they look the same, but that would be a lie.
That would be a lie, right? Because
Yeah.
square A still looks darker. Now,
Yeah,
we should all be freaking out about this,
Right.
right? We should be rioting in the streets about how incredible this is, like what this reveals to us about our brains. Because what this reveals is that even when we know the truth about something, even when we are absolutely convinced that, yes, this is the way reality is, our brain still continues to lie to us. The reason square A still looks darker than square B, even when you know it's the same color, even when you agree with me, incontrovertible evidence that they're the same color, the reason why A still looks darker than B is because that's what you've always seen. That's what you believe to be. Your brain can't help it. It's called your priors. You have always grown up knowing that a checkerboard is dark light, dark light. That's the way checkerboards work. So now when you have this little twist here, and there's something different, there's a little optical illusion here, even when the facts are clear that square A and B are the same color, your brain won't let you see the truth. It can't. It's impossible, because your brain doesn't see reality as it is. Your brain sees reality as it believes it to be.
Yeah.
So
So
how does this relate?
little cognitive bias there as well, that I would assume that there's people out there that know exactly, like when we look at being on your health program and doing things that you should need to do, the brain has this amazing ability to, know that, but kind of come up with a whole different story. So that being said, one of the things that I loved about the book, and I hear you talk about, is this concept of the brain being the prediction machine. So for somebody that is trying to lose weight and reset their metabolism, get healthy, all of those things, how does the prediction system, the brain being a prediction system, work against them?
Right. So this is exactly what happened in my weight loss journey. So when I had a particular diet, right, and I tried all of them. I've been dieting since the late 90s. And at first I started low fat, and then I did what came after low fat? Then it was keto, and then after that it was intermittent fasting, and then it was vegetarianism. And I tried all of them, and every single one of them worked until they didn't. And what we don't realize is that motivation is not a straight line. We tend to think that if we want something, we just need the self-discipline. We just need to, if we want the benefit, if we want the reward, we just need to do the behavior, right? And it's a straight line between the behavior and the benefit. And that's clearly not true. That even when we know exactly what to do, and who doesn't these days, we all basically know you have to eat right and exercise. For 99.9% of the population, that's what works. But that's not good enough, because what would happen to me is as soon as I got a little crack in that belief, as soon as I started to doubt, someone would say, oh, vegetarianism, that's bad for you're not getting all your nutrients, and keto hurts your liver, and intermittent doesn't work, or whatever. As soon as I stopped believing in it, I quit. Because motivation is not a straight line. Motivation is a triangle. In order to sustain motivation, you not only need to know the behavior, what you need to do, you not only need the benefit, why you're doing it, but most importantly, the belief is what holds it together. So when I stopped believing in a particular diet, I quit. It stopped working for me because I didn't sustain it. And I would come up with every reason why. The food industrialized complex is there to get us all overweight. And, people who are overweight, it's hard for us to exercise. And I would come up with every reason. My metabolism is bad. I would come up with every reason why I would quit, which became a limiting belief that kept me from something I knew I was capable of doing. So the point here, JC, is that it's not good enough just to know what to do. It's not good enough to really, really want it. It's not just about self-discipline. It's about removing those limiting beliefs that are in your way. If you don't do that, you're going to keep going back to the same patterns again and again. And why does that even happen? Why do we have these limiting beliefs? It's because your brain is trying to keep you safe. Remember, the brain's primary job is not to make you happy. It's not to help you reach your full potential. It's none of those things. Your brain's primary job is to keep you alive. And so how does the brain keep you alive? It predicts what you should do based on what worked for you in the past.
Right.
It helps you see reality, not as it is, but as you believe it to be, just like that checkerboard. The reason square A looks darker than square B is because that's how your brain believes checkerboards work. That's how you've always seen them. And so your brain is going to constantly tell you these lies to keep you doing and believing what you've always done and believed, because the best way to keep you alive is to keep you doing what you did, because it worked for you so far. So at some point, that limiting belief of, I can't do this, or this isn't going to work, or I'm not good enough for this, or I always fail, or I can never sustain this effort. Those limiting beliefs are always going to creep in, because that's what your brain is supposed to do. Your brain is constantly pulling you back to passivity, to the way you've always been, because that's what's safest. And so the only way to break out of this, to have those breakthroughs, is to recognize that limiting belief, call it out for what it is, and adopt a new liberating belief. The trouble
Mm.
is that our brains hide these limiting beliefs from us because our brains hate changing our minds. I'll say it again. Your brain hates changing its mind because of that evolutionary heritage of you always wanting to do what you've always done. That's what the brain has designed itself to do, right? That's what it wants to do, is to constantly pull you back to passivity. So we have to recognize those limiting beliefs, even though they're invisible to us. And to do that, we have to start a different process. It's almost like, you can think about your limiting beliefs kind of like your face. We all have a face, but you can't see your own face, right? If I said, look at your face, you can't look at your face the way you can look at your hands or your feet. You can't look at your own face. You need something outside of you. You need a mirror in order to reflect. If you're on Zoom like we are now, okay, now you can see your face. You need something outside of yourself. Just like our limiting beliefs, we can't see our own limiting beliefs, but we can see everybody else's, just like we can see everybody else's faces. Right? You can see your kids' limitations, your coworkers' limitations, your boss's limiting beliefs, everybody else's limiting beliefs we can see, but we can't see our own because to us, they feel like facts.
Mm.
They feel like they're real limitations, as opposed to what they actually are. They're just beliefs. They're just subjective. They're not objective truths.
Well, I remember this moment. I had the luxury of having a couple conversations on my show with Nir, and after he said something like that, I said, "Oh my God, I came up with this wonderful idea that we should, instead of calling them mirrors, calling them nearers." And he's like, my daughter already came up with that idea. I was very upset about that.
We're going to
So
trademark that.
here's and I can see some of the questions. People are looking for some practical tips on how to do that, because what we don't want is to just have a jacuzzi experience and say, yes, he's right, but how are we going to do that? Yeah, there it is. So we just had that put. So people are looking for practical tips. But before you hit on that, I want to ask you, if we have this tendency of reverting back to the familiar, because if you think about it, you're engaging in a process that's kind of the unknown, and it can seem uncomfortable, and we'll revert back to the familiar, even if it's suffering. So how do we, go from this moment, or the actual question I wrote is, how do we help people separate temporary feelings from the facts of what they are capable of? It's almost like suffering is the baseline. That's the normal. And that's the known, right? So answer that, but also how do we break free from this, beyond the idea of, yeah, we have to make some big changes. What are some practical tips people can take home?
Sure. So I think it starts with understanding that you don't see reality clearly. And I just
Right.
proved it to you with that checkerboard illusion. Now,
Mm.
why don't you see reality clearly? It's because your brain can't do it. That your brain doesn't see reality as it is. It runs it through a simulation, not like in the Matrix, but not that dissimilar either. It's not that reality is a simulation. It's that your perception of reality is a simulation.
Right.
So right now, your brain is absorbing 11 million bits of information. 11 million bits of information. That's the equivalent of reading War and Peace every second twice. It's like 2,000 pages of text every single second. The light entering your retinas, the sound of my voice in your ears, the ambient temperature of the room. Your brain is aware of all that information, but it's only filtering what you call reality through 50 bits of information. So 50 bits is like one sentence per second. So imagine that, one sentence versus 2,000 pages of information per second. So your brain just can't deal with all of that information. So it has to filter what you call reality through this tiny pinhole of attention. So what you call the real world isn't real. It's a filter. It's a filtered reality based on your beliefs. So what this means from a practical perspective is that we need to understand that pain is just information. Pain is just information. Hunger pangs, physical pain, emotional pain, all these things, it's just data, just like the light in the room or the sound of my voice in your ears. That's just information. Suffering is the interpretation of that data.
Right.
right? Suffering is the conscious process of interpreting what that information means. And that's how we separate the two. That in the book, I described cases of people overcoming chronic disease, chronic pain that they've had for decades. I describe people who can undergo surgery without anesthesia. Now, how do they do it? It's not magic. It's that they're able to harness that power of attention through their beliefs so that they focus that 50 bits of information on what they choose versus what they don't choose, right? They're not interpreting that information as suffering per se. They're interpreting it differently. And so that's the keystone to this process, is deciding for yourself how you are going to see that information. Is it just data, or is it necessarily suffering? So that differentiation changes everything. So how do we actually do that? How do you practically do this step by step? The first step is to take out those limiting beliefs. So let's say it's in your health journey. We hear all kinds of limiting beliefs. We hear, this won't work for me, or I'm not cut out for it, or I'm not self-disciplined, or here's the one I hear more than anything else: there's no time. Okay, how many times have you said that to yourself? There's no time. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to eat right. I don't have time to take care of myself. I have too many obligations. So we take out what we think is that excuse, what we think is that reason why we can't do something. And then we run it through these 4 questions. Now, these 4 questions, this is called inquiry-based stress reduction. It comes from a woman by the name of Byron Katie. She calls it the work. And she actually channeled a technique that's over 2,500 years old. It comes all the way from Aristotle, 2,500 years ago. And what we do is we ask ourselves, is this reason true? This belief, let's take there's no time. Is it true? Is it really true? And then we ask ourselves, how do we feel when we hold on to that belief? When I believe that there is no time to take care of my body, how do I believe? Or sorry, how do I feel? Well, I feel less motivated to do the very thing I know I'm capable of doing. I feel like I'm caged in. I feel like I can't control what I do because I believe there's no time. Whereas if I let go of that belief, if I just tried to say, what would I feel like without that belief? Now, all of a sudden, I feel free. I feel more motivated. I don't have to suffer as much from that belief. And then what we want to do, once we recognize that the belief isn't a fact, we do what's called a turnaround. We ask ourselves, could the exact opposite be true? And this is really where the unlock comes. We're not going to try and change our mind. Remember, the brain hates changing its mind. So we're not going to try and change our mind. We're just going to collect a portfolio of perspectives, other possible beliefs that we could pick and choose from. So what's the opposite of I don't have time? Well, the opposite could be I do have time, or I do have time for certain things, right? Maybe I don't have to go to the gym for an hour and sweat it out. Maybe I can do, a couple of push-ups at home, or maybe I can do go up the stairs a couple of times, or maybe there's other ways that I can accomplish what I'm looking to accomplish. So by turning around that belief that we are certain is a fact that is keeping us stuck, we open up other possibilities. We look for other potential truths. And then the final step is to pick a belief and try it on for size as if it is true. The most important thing I can leave with you today, the most important thing, is that beliefs are tools, not truths. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Beliefs are tools, not truths. They don't have to be facts. Your brain is going to fight with you and say, no, it's a fact. I don't have time. I have 3 kids and I have 2 jobs and I have this and I have to do that. I don't have time. It's a fact. Okay, but that's not a fact. That's subjective perception. It's why square A looks darker than square B. It's the way you've always looked at it. So that's the way you see it. But beliefs are not truths. Beliefs are tools. So is that belief serving you? So take, for example, this limiting belief of there's no time. There's no time. I can't exercise. I can't eat right. There's no time. Well, what if you tried on for just 1 week, just a week, the opposite? There is enough time. What would your life look like? What would you be capable of? What opportunities would you see that you didn't see before? So first thing we do is we recognize that limiting belief. We realize that it's not a fact, it's just a belief. And then finally, we do that turnaround to adopt a new liberating belief and try it on for size.
So fascinating. And, you told a great story about when you bought your mother some flowers and she didn't give you that positive response. It was really funny, and you got to read his book because you're just hearing just like teeny little glimpses of it. Um, but his wife, he's got a wonderful wife, and she said, "Do you want to do a turnaround on that?" And I think the way you told the story was like, "No, I don't."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how important is it for the person listening to want to do this work? Because it seems like somebody that's in this pattern of just your beliefs can act like as a hall pass and a crutch to get out of things. So for that person that really, really wants this, what would be like the most important action step and shift for them to get going? Because their pattern is going to typically take them back to that comfort.
Right. The most important lesson I can leave you with is, number one, that you don't see reality clearly, as I proved to you earlier, that you are capable of far more than you realize, and I can tell you a study that proves that as well, and that your beliefs shape your perception of reality. Those are the three most important things. And this is with all human suffering, whether it's, suffering along your weight loss journey, whether it's suffering in a relationship, whether it's suffering at your job. The key to suffering less in life, the key to unlocking your full potential, is realizing the power of our beliefs. And again, this isn't positive thinking. This isn't manifesting. This is science. This is what science is telling us today about how powerful our beliefs are as a perceptual filter of reality. And to illustrate that story of how important beliefs are in terms of our long-term motivation, I want to tell you a quick study that was done by a researcher back in the 1950s by the name of Kurt Richter. Richter had a very simple question. This was a long time ago, okay? So they didn't know this back then, but he wanted to figure out how long a rat could swim in water. I know you've all been dying to know how long a rat can swim in water. So this is what he did. He took a wild rat, he put in a cylinder of water, and he stood there with a stopwatch. And he determined that at about 15 minutes, that's when a rat will give up and drown, at about 15 minutes. Then he wanted to see, could he lengthen the time that the rat swims for? Could he increase the rat's persistence? So what did he do? He took a new group of rats, he put them in the same cylinder of water, and this time he stood there with a stopwatch, and at about 15 minutes, he saw the rat was starting to struggle. So he reached in, he pulled out the rat, he dried it off, he let it catch its breath for a minute, and then plunk, back into the water it went. Now, I'm going to ask everybody a question here. I want you to participate in the chat. I want you to guess. Don't say it if you know the answer. If you've read my book, Beyond Belief, or if you know the study, don't say the answer. But if you don't know the answer, I want you to guess, how much longer did the rats swim for? They started with 15 minutes. Okay, they started with 15 minutes. How much longer did the rats now swim after Richter conditioned them to expect that if they kept swimming, right, if they persisted, that salvation might be possible, that hand might reach in and save the rat? How much longer? People are saying 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. Oh, somebody said 60 minutes. Imagine that. Imagine if there was some way that you would become 4 times more persistent. If you went from 15 minutes to 60 minutes, that's 4 times more persistent. That would be incredible. Imagine if you could run for 4 times longer, if you could work on that difficult project 4 times longer, if you could be 4 times more persistent, that would be amazing. What could you be capable of accomplishing? That would be unprecedented. But the rats didn't swim 4 times longer. They didn't swim for 60 minutes. The rats went from 15 minutes to 60 hours. Not 60 minutes, 60 hours of nonstop swimming. Why? How is that possible? What changed? Well, their bodies hadn't changed. They didn't suddenly become Michael Phelps rats, right? They're same exact rat body. The environment didn't change. It was the same cylinder of water, same exact experiment. What changed? Well, we can't ask the rats, obviously, but the only variable left is that something changed in their brains. That suddenly, when they saw that salvation was possible, their beliefs changed. There was this switch that was suddenly flipped in their mind that made them so much more persistent. Now, here's the kicker, guys. Listen carefully. The 60 hours was always there within them. Okay, do we understand this? The 60 hours was always there. They just kept quitting at 15 minutes. That's the power of belief. That's why the number one factor of whether you will get healthy, whether you can adopt this new lifestyle, it's not how smart you are. It's not, do you have the right resources? It's not your skill. It's not how self-disciplined you are. It's none of that stuff. It's your belief system that allows you to persist. Because listen, weight loss, getting in shape, it's not something you do in a weekend, okay? That's not how it works. It's about doing the right things over a long, long, long period of time. And so persistence is the name of the game. It's about doing this again and again until it becomes part of who you are. It becomes part of your identity. So knowing that the number one determinant of whether you achieve your goals, all goals, right? Whether it's your health goals, your relationship goals, your financial goals, any of your goals, the number one factor will be whether or not you quit. And so if we know that that is the most important factor, persistence is what matters, then we have to ask ourselves, how do we persist? Well, the way we persist is by having the right beliefs. When we install that belief set and we get rid of this old software that we've all been lugging around with ourselves, this old toolkit that doesn't work for us anymore, when we can recognize that those limiting beliefs are exactly what's holding us back, and we can get rid of those limiting beliefs and adopt these new liberating beliefs, that's when we become unstoppable.
I love that. I'm gonna have oh, there he is. This is my brother. We talk about you all the time. He's got his Indistractable book somewhere near him right now, I'm sure. You know what's interesting about this, Mike, is, and this is where it really, really makes sense to me, is when I started my health journey, like you, Nir, 20 years ago, I was 80 pounds overweight, and I didn't have any belief system that, I mean, I knew I could lose weight, but I didn't know I could get healthy. And it was this program and being in a community and having the right support and, just all those mechanics, because nothing else worked for me, that gave me the chance to change my whole belief system. It's interesting because I don't have the belief system of an unhealthy person now. I have the belief system of a healthy person. Now, I've got a lot of work to do in other realms, but you kind of just explained why this program and being in a community like this. Guys, how relevant is this for everything that we do? Please read this book. Mike, I don't know if you had a question.
I'm just sitting here like being like, I'm just so glad I got to listen to this conversation, and be part of it. And, Nir, one of the parts about our program that I think is very unique and powerful is that everybody is provided with a coach and brought into a community. And as you were telling that last story, I was just thinking of the role of a coach, that could be that hand at any given moment, or a community. In this process of identifying beliefs and creating beliefs that serve us, what role does a coach or a community play in that? Do we have any research to talk about that?
Huge, 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 huge. It's so important because what is the role of a coach? A coach is helping you see what's already in you. It's helping you see your real potential. In fact, let me give you a great coaching story. Venus Williams, when she was, Serena, not Venus, sorry, Serena Williams, when she was in Wimbledon one year, she was not doing well, not at all. And the reason she wasn't doing well is because she was hesitating at the net. She wasn't rushing the net like she should have, because she was scared. She was psyching herself out and she wasn't rushing the net. In tennis at that level, every millisecond counts, that if you don't rush the net, you're going to lose the point. And her coach, Patrick Montaglu, called her over and said, Serena, I need to tell you something. I've been looking at the numbers, and it turns out that 80% of the time that you rush the net, you score a point. And she looks at her and she says, what? I thought I was terrible at the net. And he says, look, the statistics don't lie. It's the best news of the day. And he's right. Statistics don't lie. But he did. She wasn't scoring anywhere near 80% of points at the net, not even close. But he knew that she could. He knew her previous experience. He knew what she was capable of doing. And here's the kicker. when he unlocked that limiting belief that I suck at the net, what she was believing, he unlocked what was already within her. He gave her this new liberating belief that she was great at the net. And the lie became reality. She started to play differently. She started rushing the net, and she ends up winning Wimbledon that year. Now, what am I telling you? Am I telling you that you need to lie to yourself, that coaches should just lie to their clients? Should we be delusional? Should we start gaslighting ourselves? Hey, folks, listen carefully. You're already lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You notice in the middle of the word belief, what do you see there? In the middle of the word belief, L-I-E. It's in the word, people. You're already lying to yourself. You just picked the wrong lie. You told yourself you can't when you can. So when it comes to these future beliefs, right, about what I can do, it hasn't happened yet. It's not a fact. It's a belief. It's a subjective perception about what I'm capable of doing. So when you decide you can't, you're right. It's it. It's done. When you decide dieting is hard, getting in shape is hard, this isn't easy, that's a limiting belief. Okay. I'll tell you in my journey, whenever it was difficult, and it is, sometimes you do feel pain. I'm not going to tell you don't feel pain. Hunger hurts. And sometimes if you're on a diet, you're going to feel hunger. And I would always associate, if I feel pain, I'm suffering. That's bad. Who says a little bit of hunger is suffering? It doesn't have to be suffering. So what did I do? I took a Post-it note, which I can show you as evidence. I'm constantly changing my own limiting beliefs. Here's my Post-it note on a belief I'm changing right now. And I put on this Post-it note my new liberating belief. So when I lost the weight, I had a Post-it note that said, this is what it feels like to get better. This is what it feels like to get better. You can steal this. You can adopt this as your own new liberating belief. So now every time I felt the pain, every time I felt the signal, every time I felt that information, remember the 11 million bits of information? Well, hunger is just one of those bits of information. Okay. How I interpret it is whether it becomes suffering. And so now I wasn't interpreting it as woe is me. This is hard. This isn't easy. Now it was, wait a minute. This is what it feels like to get better. That information, that signal, good. That means it's working. I'm getting better. So that's how your belief set can literally change what you see, what you feel, and ultimately what you do.
Oh, that is so good. Well, guys, thank you so much. Nir, we really appreciate your willingness to come in here and share with us. And I just think it's a perfect topic for what it is we do in our work and helping liberate people to become the healthiest version of themselves. JC, thank you for guiding us through this conversation tonight. It was so wonderful. So, all right, everybody, we will be back here next week with another episode of Let's Talk, and we'll be talking about the top 5 things successful clients do, right? So I think that's going to be a great topic. I'm so looking forward to that. So again, thanks guys for joining us. These are all put onto YouTube, on Spotify, and make sure you plug into those. All of these past episodes are there for you to enjoy. So thanks again. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you next week on another episode of Let's Talk.
Thanks, everybody.